In this video, we'll be replacing this clip. This is Olivia. I crashed Olivia earlier this year at the Apple Cup, April of 2025. She took one heck of a whack to the front and absolutely unquestionably needs a new clip. This one's bent pretty extensively. Fury went ahead and sent us this one. Typically they prefer to do them in-house so they can ensure that everything is correct, the clip is on correctly, there's no twist to it, there's no bind to it, everything's 100% correct. I've dealt with Fury for a long time and I have the ability to get this clip on, so they went ahead and sent it to me. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and start cutting this thing off to get it replaced. I do have my own swag. I know it seems like everybody nowadays has their own shirts or their own swag, their own merchandise. I'm no different. I do have mine. I've got a couple different designs. This is kind of like our just basic design. We've got this Tabasco style reimagined design, and then we have the skull design, which you'll see in a lot of the videos. If you're interested in supporting the channel and supporting the brand, shorttrackheroes.com, and then search BJ Tidrick Racing. All of my shirts will come up. We don't generally have a bunch at the racetrack because it's just kind of a pain in the butt. But if you're interested in supporting the brand and supporting the channel, shorttrackheroes.com, and then search BJ Tidrick or BJ Tidrick Racing. If you found any value from any of the videos that we've made, if you've learned anything, if you've grown as a racer because of the videos, I encourage you to help support us by purchasing a t-shirt. I want to help fund the operation to build more cars, to help build more videos, to learn more. Please like, subscribe, share, and buy a t-shirt. It'd mean the world to me. Thank you. In that first clip, you saw me getting this chassis located. So I'm doing two things here. One, I'm putting it on 1-inch blocks. That takes away any variance that there is from the welds holding the car up off the plate from these joining sections where these bars come in. If those aren't ground off flat, the car could kind of sit here and rock a little bit. So I put it on 1-inch blocks all the way around to elevate that car to ensure that it's not sitting goofed up. Also, 1 inch is easy to subtract from any measurements if I need to use any measurements as far as the height of the clip and whatnot. Secondly, I added these angle iron brackets. Now, these are, there's grid lines cut into this plate. It's hard to see. I don't know if you'll be able to see those little grid lines in there. They are there. They're very hard to see from the video, but I can see them. So I make sure the car is square, parallel with those lines. Once I get all that in, I weld these down. Now when I take the car loose, I can cut the clip off. I can lock it back down in its exact spot to ensure that I'm located on those grid lines to help me make sure the clip is square and in line. Here's a little better look at the grid lines that are marked out on my table. I know with all the scratches and stuff, I've had several cars on this plate over the years. You can see that the grid marks horizontally and vertically, they are 6-inch centers, 6 inch between each line. It's a lot easier for me when I have these grid lines to get the car lined up and ensure that everything's perfectly straight and parallel. Now that we've got the car locked down, jigged up so that it's sitting exactly where I want it, I'm ready to take it loose. I'll put it up on stands and start cutting. The car's on jack stands. You can see a little bit better the bracketry that I have to hold the car in place. The 1-inch tall block is to hold the chassis up, and then the angle iron welded down is to locate the chassis to keep it square. When cutting a clip off, especially a heavily bent clip, be careful when cutting these because they do spring quite a bit, and if you have your cutter or your grinder or whatever you're using to cut that loose and it kicks, it could injure you, especially if you're using like a torch or like a plas cutter. You'll have red hot steel, and when that thing kicks, it could throw that red hot steel on you and burn you. So I prefer to use cut off wheels, sawzalls, different tools. Just be careful whatever you're using, that it will kick and it could bind the blade up, break the blade, or like I say, if you're using a torch, throw red hot metal on you. When you're replacing a clip, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to strip as much weight out of the car as you can get. Obviously the engine's going to have to come out, obviously the drivetrain, the exhaust, all that, but I also pull the rear end out and the fuel cell. The fuel cell mainly because when you're doing all this cutting on this car, the last thing you're going to want is a bunch of fuel in this thing that could potentially cause a fire. But when you take all that weight out, it makes it a lot easier to move this car around. You don't want to have to be dealing with hundreds of pounds of extra weight when you're trying to move this thing around to get it right so you can put this clip on it. Another pro tip, make sure you put a stiff leg in the back. When you cut this clip off the front, this car could really easy teeter and fall off the jack stands. So by holding the back up and by taking the stuff off the front, it just ensures that the car doesn't flip over on you. Alright, now that the clip is off, it's easy to see that a lot of these manufacturers put these plates in here on the end of the rail, between the rail and the clip. It's a cutoff plate so that if the car does need to be reclipped, it gives you a nice surface here to grind off and butt up against. It's a whole lot easier than trying to merge and marry it to this 2x3, and then as it gets beat up or cut down, it gets shortened, then you got a gap to fill. This just gives you a nice clean area to grind to, and it's always the same. The foot box has that built into it, the pedal plate. Same thing, it's a reinforced plate so that you can butt your clip up to it and weld to it. Our next step will be to cut these bars out. I've got to get the dash out, maybe part of the foot box, so I can get these bars removed, and then I'll show you how I go about grinding these so that you don't stop sign or flat spot this down post here. I'm trying to get this cleaned off as best as possible without grinding into this down post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a couple of different grinders, and I'm going to try to shape it all down and not touch this sub material. And you can usually tell when you have powder coat, you can tell when you get through the powder, like right there, you can see I just broke through the powder. I don't want to grind this down and thin this tube out, so I'm just going to grind it down slowly and shape it and leave it to where, like, just like this one here, see how it's just barely raised? It's kind of hard to get a good view of it, but you can see how it's just barely raised. I'm going to use this grinder to try to get that down as far as I can, and then I'll finish it with basically a finishing pad, a sanding disc. I'll show you when I get a little bit closer. There's just a little bit left, but I have not cut into this down post. I don't want to thin this wall out, and if you grind too much on it, you create a flat spot and you compromise the integrity of that bar. So by getting it down this far, all I've really done is kind of scratched up the powder coat. I haven't really dug through it. Yeah, you can see some of the steel down there, but I haven't flat spotted that. I've basically taken it down as far as I can with my hog wheel. These are really good for hogging that material down, but they're not really good for finishing. And when you're grinding on it like this and you're shooting the sparks that way, you're going to create a flat spot. By using a disc like this and shooting my sparks down along with the tube, or if I'm cutting right here, shooting my sparks that way, I'm basically just filing that down so it's the same height as this bar here. Like when I grind here, I'll shoot my sparks either down or up, and I'm just filing that down so that I'm not thinning this wall out. I don't want to thin this out because then when you weld to it, you run the risk of blowing through it, or in the next impact, it doesn't have the strength to hold that. So, like I say, watch the direction of your sparks and make sure that your pad is shaping that and not creating flat spots on that bar. And here you can see the finished product. There are no flat spots, no stop signs. There's a couple spots like right here where I didn't really want to grind down too far. I don't want to compromise that bar. A little bit of existing weld where I'm going to put that new Nerf bar bracket. It's not an issue. Same thing here and in the top side of this weld. My new bar is going to come right over that. I can weld that down. I will have to take a wire brush to get that powder coat out of there so I can weld it. But rather than trying to cut that corner out like that, I know I've got to coat my tube to fit there, so that'll work just fine. The integrity of that bar is perfectly fine. I didn't grind away, I mean, maybe a couple of thousandths, but nothing like a flat spot would do. And here is what the end of that rail and that cut-off plate should look like when it's ready to go. Nice smooth spot for us to butt up our new clip. All right, we're ready to put the new clip on. Alright, we got the clip tacked in place. Basically, we need to know what our offset is. We make sure that we're parallel with our grid lines on the plate. We need to make sure that we're flat horizontally. We use that. We use basically an angle finder on the cross member and on the dash bar up here. And as long as those measurements are perfectly flat, parallel, this is in line. We know we're square. Yeah, we've got it tacked in place. We're ready to start locating some of these bars. I did add on the front side, you'll see that I added this tack welded stiff leg here. This is basically so that when I tack this, it doesn't move around on me. It's just extra places to hold it in place while I'm waiting between welds. I effed up. I was putting these bars in, and I'd had my phone set up in the exact same spot, and I don't know if I hit the button to take a photo, or if it just didn't record, or if I just flat didn't hit the button at all, but I don't have any of the long section of video of me installing these bars the other day. My plan was to kind of make this like a step-by-step on replacing this clip to kind of help you do it at home. Yeah, I have a table and you may not have a table, but it's nothing that you can't do without, you know, like a laser or some strings. It's all pretty simple. The basics are getting it in line this direction, getting all the twist out of it and making sure it's square. It's actually quite simple. I was just kind of showing you how I do it with my grid table. I just screwed up. I didn't get the video footage that I had hoped that I got. So, yeah, none of the installation of the bars from the dash bar to the hoops, none of that is in there. I apologize. I screwed up. So, I hope you guys learned something on the video. What you did see maybe help with, you know, grinding or, you know, getting stuff aligned or just, you know, double checking before you weld it. But I apologize. Let's check out where we're at. You can see that I added some supports vertically to the table to ensure that the clip doesn't move around when it's getting welded up. When you're welding some of these bars, it does want to pull and push and pull and push. So by welding those, it just kind of helps ensures that these horns are at the right height. Yeah, you can see that I got it all welded. I'm happy with it. You can see here that there was a bar that was welded across from that side to this side, and when it comes from the factory they add that, and basically that keeps the rear width from getting goofed up so that when you put it in, it plugs in correctly there where it's not in focus, and it plugs in correctly over there. Everything maintains alignment. I've got my tubes in. A couple of them got a little bit rusty. This is ground material. Unfortunately, the ground material does tend to rust a little bit easier when it is exposed to air and moisture and humidity. So anyways, yeah, sorry I missed that big section of installing those bars. It was quite easy. When you get a clip from Fury, they send all the bars that are pretty much pre-cut, pre-coped, ready to install. I did have to do a little bit of work to get them to fit right, but I mean, pretty simple. So yeah.